Welcome. As women in business, we're so busy being busy. We're juggling life and business, and we're in the hustle. And that's when we lose sight of who we really are. This podcast is here to inspire and empower you to unleash you, the one that's been hiding behind all the roles that you play. Weekly episodes will help you to find fun, energy, and flow in life, and also give you tips and tools so you can have a successful yet simple business. My guests and myself talk all things mindset, spirituality, relationships, and of course business. Live the life that you've been dreaming of. Now, let's get to the good part. On today's episode of the Sharon podcast, I have Sarah Duran. Sarah, welcome to the podcast. And if you could just let the listeners know a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. So I wear a few different hats. I am a close to full-time freelance project manager, and that is sort of the client-facing side of my business. And over the last few years, I've also developed a series of side hustles, as one does, where I run a coaching program for freelancers, consultants, and solopreneurs. And so I've really shifted my focus and added an area of my business where I'm helping other freelancers, consultants, and solopreneurs get what they need out of their work and build better businesses.
Excellent. And that's actually why I wanted to get you on as a guest on the podcast, because I hear a lot around about, and predominantly my audience are, females, and there's a lot around there around, wanting to leave the corporate job or leave the 9-to-5 or, shutting down big businesses or selling big businesses to just change their pace of life. So looking at being, whether it be a solopreneur or a freelancer. So can we just talk about the two different terms there? So solopreneur and freelancer, how would you define the two different terms? Because it's sort of similar when you look at, a mentor and a coach, people are like, well, what's the difference? So what do you define the difference between a solopreneur and a freelancer?
Oh, that's such a good question. So I will tell you how I define it. And I will also preface this by saying that I think it's a little bit subjective and that people should decide how they best want to label themselves. I also sort of use the solopreneur label as almost like an umbrella term that encompasses freelancers, consultants, content creators, lots of type of people that work primarily for themselves by themselves. And so I think of solopreneur sort of as an umbrella term. And I do think there's a little bit of a differentiation. So when I think of a freelancer, and depending on the audience and the context, I will often, like I just did, refer to myself as a freelancer. I love freelancers. I think freelancing is sort of like the gateway drug to solopreneurship. So when I think of a freelancer, I think of someone who has a pretty specific skill set and takes that skill set and that very specific expertise out on their own to do that specific thing for other people on their own. Not associated with a traditional 9-to-5 type of job. When I think of a consultant, I'm sort of thinking about people who they definitely have a specific skill set. They're sort of in this consulting role where they're helping people think at a slightly higher level of strategy and sometimes change management, that kind of stuff. And when I think of a solopreneur, again, it's sort of an umbrella term over both of those. And I think a solopreneur is someone who really has gone through some phases, whether you start as a freelancer or consultant, no matter how you label yourself, and you're at this place where you've built a business that is very unique and specific to you, not just your skill set, but a business that is custom designed to give you exactly what you need in your life. And so you're operating with what I refer to as boss mindset. You're really owning your business, even if it is a business of one. It is still a capital B business. And you are, that is sort of the persona that you're projecting out into the world.
That was an awesome explanation of both. And just, I think you made it really clear, whilst there is some overlap in solopreneur versus freelancer, the way that you've just described that, I think would actually give someone who's thinking about delving into one of those roles, some real clarity around that and what that means. And obviously, it means different things for different people, and you can evolve. As you said, you might start out as a freelancer and then move into a solopreneur. So I think that explanation was fantastic. Thank you. So if we've got someone out there that's looking at being, a freelancer or a solopreneur, and they're not quite sure sort of where to start, they've sort of got this idea, I know whether they've worked for someone or they've had a business and they liked part of that aspect. So it's okay, well, I've got this idea. How do I start? Because I see that question so often in a lot of the Facebook groups that I'm in. So, okay, I want to do this thing on my own. Where do I start? Because when I started my, solopreneur, freelancer, consultant sort of gig back in 2015, so much has changed since then. And I don't really work with businesses so much that are in that phase. So again, while I wanted to get you on here and pick your brain with your area of expertise, how do you actually turn that little idea about, whether it's a certain niche that you could go into, or whether, you sort of feel, I like working with this type of client, or I like doing this kind of role. How do you actually get started with making that idea, into a business, or, a freelancing offer that you can put out there?
Yes, absolutely. So, I wrote a whole book about this. It's called Instant Freelancer. You find it on Amazon.
I'll put a link to that.
Perfect. And I think the first part of that is, and this is not how I did it, because I think that a lot of us who just end up going down this road don't always start at this place. And so this is not how I started, but how in hindsight, I always tell other people to start. And so it really is about figuring out what you love doing, what you're best positioned to do. So what you're good at. Clearly, it has to be supported by what is going to be able to make you money. Although I also find that if you're super clear about where your expertise is, and the people that you're best positioned to serve, you can make money at a lot of things that people think you can't make money doing. And so that is don't always follow the sort of objective industry ways of figuring out what can make you money. But really it's starting out figuring out what you want your business to give you. And I think you're hitting it on the head when a lot of people are like, I want to go out on my own. Even if you're in sort of a leadership role in a company and you're like, I need a different lifestyle. I need to take this out on my own. What is it that's driving you towards that? Because I think a lot of us end up going into, especially when you're in an upper level leadership role, you may have, like me, have a type A personality or be an overachiever and go out there and sort of end up building a business that sort of puts you in the same box that you were in before you even went out. And so getting super clear about what you want to get out of your solopreneur business is the number one thing, which is just some of those things are flexibility, time, money for sure. Maybe it's the ability to travel, living some sort of digital nomad lifestyle. All of those things are going to dictate what happens next, which is how do you build a business model that gives you those things? If you want to have a super flexible business where you can sort of work when you want and not work when you want, then maybe being, for example, a virtual assistant isn't going to be the right role for you, right? So it's about really thinking about that intersection of what are you best positioned to do? And then how do you structure that so that it gives you exactly what you need? And then I think I'm a big believer in sort of old school networking. When people are like, how do I get this idea off the ground? There's a certain aspect of it where you just have to start doing it. I think entrepreneurs, solopreneurs in particular, learn by doing. And so I think we often end up in this place where we're like, I need the website, I need the social media presence, I need. And really what you need to do is just do it. Start talking about it. Start having conversations with the people, start trying on this new persona that you want to be, even if you're not totally sure what that is yet, because the only way you're going to get closer to what you want to be doing is to start exploring some different avenues and start having conversations with people. And that's also how you start finding clients. And so you're sort of checking all of the boxes there where it's like, just start talking to people about it. And that's where you're going to start finding what resonates both with you and with the people you're talking to, which is going to drive you towards being able to create that customized business.
Yeah. And I think, when I started my business back in 2015, that's exactly what I did. The online presence wasn't as predominant as it is now. And, I worked as a consultant consulting to different companies. And what I did is I just went out there and started talking to previous businesses that I'd worked with and started saying, can I do your marketing? Can I start to help you with your sales? Can I help you with your processes? And I did that. I got out there and did the old-fashioned networking. And then I didn't have a website for like 2 years, with my business. And even like the first time I went to invoice someone, they're like, I had to send an invoice. Like, I'll send me the invoice for your work. I'm like, I don't even have a business name, And I think that we forget that in, this modern, online technical, technology-driven era that we're in, is that we get so caught up in the, let's get the logo, let's get the social media set up, let's get the website. But actually what you really need to do is, as you said, work out what you want your business to give you, what kind of lifestyle, what you love doing and who you love working with. But also, start with that old-fashioned part of marketing where you actually get out there and network with people first, and then do all the shiny stuff. Because, as you said, you don't want to start, putting all your time and effort into building websites and social media, because you need to get out there and get the customers first. And so one of the things that I see out there is that, you might start off with your business as an idea and start working with people, and then you might change. Like, I changed different iterations of my coaching and consulting business over and over and over, because I'd work with clients doing one thing, and then I go, oh, you know what, I'm sick of doing that after 2 years. I want to start doing something else. So I think that's the thing too, when you've got that initial idea, that might not be something that you do long term. It could be just to get you started. And I think that's the thing too with, where you talked about moving from freelancer to solopreneur. Once you've got a bit of experience and, got a bit of, some customers behind you, you can sort of work out that, you might sort of pivot your offer in a bit and change that as you work through. And you mentioned there, some of the benefits of being a freelancer solopreneur, having time, having freedom, having a bit of flexibility. What are the pros and cons that you see, within your business and with clients that you work with, freelancing and solopreneur? Like, we know there's, you're able to be flexible and, determine who you work with and what work you do, and, set your income goals. But then there's things like, then you want to go away and you're sort of tied to your business and you feel like you're online all the time. So how do you work around sort of those pros and cons?
I mean, yeah, I think you hit some of the main ones. For me, there's not a lot of cons. And so I will hit on some cons. But I think I am sort of the mind that entrepreneurship, especially solopreneurship, is the best possible way to work for a variety of reasons. I think the flexibility is super important. And I also think that it's just this, you're creating work instead of trying to fit into a box that someone else has defined. Like, this is what work looks like. This is the role. These are the deliverables. This is what you do. This is when you're here. This is when you're not here. This is when you have to respond by. You make all of those rules yourself. So you're creating, and again, this is why you have to start there before you start building your business. And like you said, it is a process of trial and error. Like, you will invent it and reinvent it a million times over the course of your life.
Absolutely.
But you can't, it's just like the level of freedom that you have, not just to like do what you want, when you want it, with who you want to do it for. It's almost like unimaginable when you're working in sort of like a traditional 9-to-5 type of job. Like, I say this all the time, where like, I had no idea that this was possible. Like, I didn't go out, sort of like you, like I became what I refer to as like an accidental entrepreneur. Cause I was like, I was gonna pick up some contract work. I'm going to see what happens and like maybe like go back and get another job. And then I was like, oh my God, like, I'm making way more money. I'm working way less time. I actually get to choose the people that I work with. And like, I like them a lot. So it's just this level of freedom that is like unmatched. With that comes a level of accountability and responsibility. that I also think most people are not conditioned to take on, again, because we're all sort of like taught to be employees, like all through school. And like, so you're like sort of taught to be an employee your whole life. And so having that level of freedom can be a little bit overwhelming. It takes a little bit of trial and error to figure out how to structure your business so that it's giving you what you need, how to draw boundaries. I think one of the cons that you named, which I do think, again, like I sort of don't think of any of them as cons, but I do think that that is a challenge of like being, especially when you're a solopreneur, being able to take dedicated time off. I would also say that that goes back to how you build your business. And so like if taking dedicated time off is really important to you, you really need to think about that. And it should be important to you because it's crucial. You really need to think about how you build your business and how you set those expectations with your clients, and what types of products and services you offer that allow you to do that. So you can easily be like, a really good example I would say is like possibly like a freelance copywriter who takes projects on like an ad hoc basis. And so you can take on projects, know that like, I'm going to go take these 2 weeks off. And so like all my projects will wrap up by this date. I'm going to go take 2 weeks off and then I'm going to come back. And so you can like time, that's just one of many examples. The folks that I work for on the client facing side of my business are, I have long-term multi-year retainer contracts with them. And so I set those expectations from the beginning that like, this is my commitment to you that these things will get done. And there are like a few times a year where like I'm completely out of office. Yeah. And I plan very far in advance for those things to happen. Like it's not a surprise to them. But again, like I also like I check my email when I'm on vacation because like I enjoy what I do. Like it's not stressful. It's like I am genuinely like, oh, like I enjoy working on my business, which does make turning it off, harder when you actually enjoy what you do. But
it does. And that's the key because, being a freelancer or a solopreneur, it's hard and it can be lonely. And, yes. We talked about structure, and sometimes like friends of mine say, how can you work for yourself? Like, how can you work from home? Like, I'd be so tempted to go and sit on the lounge and watch Days of Our Lives or something like that. And I go, well, yep. Because you just got to get up, you get dressed, you do hair and makeup, and you have a separate dedicated area so that when you're working, and then if you want to go, out shopping and have lunch or go to the beach or, sit down and watch Netflix for 2 hours, then you structure that into your day like you would as if you were in an office, because otherwise you get so sidetracked that you don't take the action and your business doesn't grow. And then a lot of people give up and go back to their 9 to 5. And I think, one of the things that you said then, like, you do check your email on holidays because you love what you do and you love who you work with. And that's one of the pros of being a solopreneur or freelancer. And I think that at those times when things get really tough and it gets hard and you don't have consistent income and you get lonely and you don't have that sort of help, which is why you engage people like yourself and myself, where we're, coach and mentor them through that, if you're doing something that you love and that you're passionate about, that will always see you through those times in business where it's hard and where you get lonely. That will always see you through. And I think if you always come back to what you said before, is that, if you're got a business that's going to give you what you want, then I always sort of come back to that. Okay, so, if I have a client that I don't like or something happens or I don't hit my income goal, I always go, well, why did I start this business? And I think, I've seen in some of the things on your website where you talk about, everyone has these really big goals, but setting smaller goals so you can see those little achievements along the way away, rather than setting these massive goals that are so far in the future that you can't see them. And, you get disheartened when you don't reach them. So tell me a little bit about how you work with, particularly women that are trying to start up these solopreneur and freelance businesses. How do you help them to set those little goals so that they do get those little wins and it does keep them motivated? Because as we said, it can be hard starting up, it can be lonely. It's, as you're navigating through what niche and what offers and what pricing and who to work with and, how to structure things. What are the tips that you work with your clients initially?
Yeah, so I think what you touched on, and I will just like continue to say this over and over again, is like knowing the why and what you want to get out of it is so crucial, because the motivation is everything. Like if you are not I often say if you're not addicted to the freedom that it gives you, then you will quit. You can't be addicted to the money because like money can sometimes be hard. And if you just want to make money, there are way easier ways to go do that. So you have to be addicted to the freedom. You have to be addicted to what you want to get out of it, whatever freedom looks like for you. And once you're sort of like clear on the wants, then I think setting the goals is about, like you said, setting these like shorter term, what I refer to as short cycle goals, where you're not setting goals that are like a year or God forbid 5 years out, right? Because who knows what the world is going to be like in 5 years. Who knows what we're going to be like in 5 years. You're setting short cycle goals so that they're super tangible. They have metrics that are qualitative. So they're like, what does it look like and feel like? Not, I want to have 100K by the end of the year. What does 100K allow you to do with your life? And you're able to when you sort of boil down what are the like actual things you have to do to get to those goals. I always have people use a tactic to rate things in terms of value versus effort. And so what is high value, low effort? Those are where you're going to get the short win, the immediate wins. That is what's going to propel you forward. And you're still going to have to tackle the things on your list that are high value, high effort. But if you can tackle some of those high value, low effort things first, it's going to make you feel like you're making progress.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Love that. So just to wrap things up, if I was about to start on my journey as a solopreneur freelancer, what should I start with? Where should I start?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, I would just start with like why you want to do that. Because like I said, and I am not opposed to making money. I love making money. Money is wonderful and amazing. And that can't be your only motivation. Flexibility can't be your only motivation. Like you have to really dive deep into like, why do you want to do it? And get super clear on that. And then I would say just like start trying some things, like get into that exploration phase that I think you and I both went through, where it's like, I'm just going to start talking to people and I'm just going to start, you're doing things that you know how to do. So I'm not saying like, go out there and tell people that you can do a bunch of stuff that you can't do, because that's not going to build a great business. So focus on your skill set, but just like start doing it. Start talking about it, start wearing this like hat of I am a business owner, and just like see how that feels. But you're ultimately not going to be able to, you can't think your way into it. You have to do your way into it.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, if you're really not sure where to start and you're really stuck, what do people ask you to help them with?
Yes.
That's always something that if you actually are absolutely so stuck, or, go and sit, by the beach or by the pool or out in nature, go and sit, under a tree and just sit there and grab, a pen or a text or a notepad and just start writing down different things that you love doing.
I think that's great advice.
And just let the ideas flow. So I think that's one area. So Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the Sharon Cliff podcast today. I will drop the link to your socials and website, and of course a link to the book that you spoke about. And if you want to get in touch with Sarah and find out more about how she can help you become a solopreneur and freelancer, then hit Sarah up for it. So thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Before you press stop, thanks for listening to today's episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, do the 3 S's. Subscribe so you never miss an episode each Thursday. Shout out to your community so they can be inspired and empowered. And share. Share with me your aha moments and your takeaways. By doing this, it helps this podcast to inspire and impact more women globally so they can have a fulfilling life and business. I would love for you to connect with me on Instagram, The Sharon Cliff. And if you want to know more about me or how you can work with me, head to my website, sharoncliff.com.au. See you next time.